So I obviously started Fool's Errand. I'm up through chapter 2. But the scene where Hap is describing the stoning of the witted woman makes me wonder if that is going to play a much wider role, just in regards to like the persecution and like overt presentation and I guess response to the witted folks. And it also makes me wonder if either Nettle or Dutiful will be witted as well. Which this is another thing, is like, so Fitz and Verity switch bodies for them to, for him to be able to procreate and conceive Dutiful. But technically that would still be Verity's son, because that's all they did was switch minds. They didn't switch like genetic code or anything like that. So I'm a little like not confused, but like I'm wondering like why Fitz is so concerned about like whether Shade knows about Dutiful and like how he was conceived, unless they're implying that because they switched minds, Dutiful is actually Fitz's son. I don't know. I just started chapter 3, and I don't know why it made me tear up and made me very sad, but when Fitz is like just the narration, I could feel the aching in the wolf's hips, echoing the gnawing pain in my scarred back. Nights in the open were not gentle to either of us anymore, yet I would have gladly lain down on the cold, damp earth rather than go back to my cottage and confront Starling. Whatever. It's the aching in the wolf's hips. Oh, Night Eyes is getting old, and it just makes me think about my dog and how he's getting gray, and he's gonna start having arthritis, and Max, you're a good boy. Yeah, you wagging your tail. Get your otter. Anyways, sorry, distracted. Oh, Night Eyes is getting old. Well, I mean, there is that mirror there already that's kind of started in Fool's Errand with this idea of, well, I mean, it's the actual, of course, Max has a toy, but it actually started in, obviously, in Assassin's Apprentice, this idea and this thematic thread of fatherhood and parenting and parenthood and stuff like that. But I think it's really kind of come to play in Fool's Errand now that you're back with Fitz, of him seeing, or at least secondhand, again, I'm only up through chapter 2, but Max, can you stop? Him seeing secondhand through Starling how Nettle is being raised by Burrick and Molly, and how she inherits parts of Fitz and parts of Burrick, and this, that's like nature versus nurture type thing. So I imagine it's gonna be the same thing with Dutiful, where it's obviously, even though Verity is not physically there to raise him, where Fitz may be the genetic father of Dutiful, he is truly in spirit the son of Verity. Or, yeah, Dutiful is the son of Verity. There you go. Hope that makes sense. I couldn't send this voice message last night because it was after midnight and I didn't want to wake up my husband. And I didn't have my phone down with me. But anyways, so I'm up through chapter 5. Well, one, hopefully you can still hear me because I set my phone down. But I guess people don't like Starling because of how, like, I don't know, how she, I guess, the whole thing with her and Fitz, which, like, I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, you know, I think this, I understand where she's coming from. Like, she says, I belong to myself and I shall decide who shares my body. It hurts nothing for me to be with both of you. I will not get pregnant by either of you. If any man could get me a child, it would have happened long ago. So what does it matter whose bed I share? Valid point. Love a woman owning her sexuality and being strong with it. But it's at the same time, you know, Fitz does say, he's like, I too belong to myself, and I decide who will share my body. And I will not share it with another man's wife. So, like, I get it. I get why people don't like Starling in this scene. At least, I assume it's this scene. And she treats Hap. It's not even kind of. She treats Hap like she's angry and she's hurt, and so she's treating Hap poorly. You know, basically, kind of blackmailing him in a way, saying if you tell him, you know, XYZ. But at the same time, like I get it. Like, I get it. But what was it? What was the other thing? I had another thing here. Now there's just this sense of, like, melancholy in being reunited with Fitz's character, that even though this book is only, like, what, it's less than 600 pages, technically I could probably get done with this really quickly, but, like, with Fitz and Fitz's stories, I feel like I need to take my time with him, and kind of relish in his stories, as opposed to, like, Live Ship, where I was just, like, compelled to read more and more and more. This is just a different type of story, and it's just, to paraphrase John Keats, it's luxuriating in the lake itself. Or the point of jumping in a lake is not to get to the other side, it's to luxuriate in the senses of the lake. So, I'm luxuriating in Fitz's story. So, but with that said, I absolutely, and I know I messaged this, I sent a message about this on, I think it was Jimmy's Discord, but I absolutely loved being reunited, or being reunited and seeing the reunion of Fitz and the Fool, and it's just, I love the Fool so much. What was it? Where's that piece? There's another section. The one that I thought was really cool. Going back to, shit, where was it? Sorry, hold on. He's talking to Jenna, and she says, a man is as he's made, a man can't help how he's made. And that's kind of related to the whole, like, witted versus, like, she's talking about, like, being witted or whatever, which I thought that entire scene of where he uses she uses, like, the charm, and, like, both Fitz and Night Eyes, like, or like, what the hell? I thought that was absolutely incredible. I mean, she's talking about the witted. A man is as he's made. A man can't help how he's made. That's a really interesting parallel and juxtaposition to this idea of parenthood and this nature versus nurture type thing that I mentioned before. And they're talking about the garden, and it first made me chuckle because it made me think of Jane Austen and the reading of Jane Austen's novels, that the garden is a euphemism for sex, and a woman's virginity. So it's like, no man will enter my garden. So as soon as I saw the garden thing, like, oh, enter my garden, I'm like, oh god, okay, euphemism. But more than that, I think there's this really interesting kind of illustration and depiction and imagery of the garden really being a physical manifestation of Fitz, because she gives him charms and stuff like that. I don't know. I just feel like that scene where she's taking him through the garden and giving him a garden, that garden charm or whatever. I just feel like there is something there that is important, and that maybe I don't know yet if it will turn into something, but it just feels important to me. I can't quite put my finger on why. Except for one of the last lines in chapter 4. Her words tugged at me, and hopes long denied struggled to grow. And, it's just grow, garden, hopes, growing, etc., etc. But, anyways, to chapter 5, though, and Fitz's and the Fool's reunion. I genuinely teared up. It was so wonderful. The Fool just jumping off literally throwing himself at Fitz. And Fitz just being so, oh, fool, I choked. It cannot be you, yet it is, and I do not care how. And then the Fool, and the Fool greeting Night Eyes. I had not thought to see you again. Well met, old friend. He buried his face in the wolf's ruff, wiping away tears. I did not think less of him for them. My own ran unchecked down my face. And, yeah, it's just, I love them. And, then, going a little further on, the Fool's telling Fitz, you've been with me as close as the tips of my fingers, even when we were years and seas apart. Your being was like the hum of a plucked string at the edge of my hearing, or a scent carried on a breeze. That is just absolutely beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. And then what else? And the, Fitz riding the Fool's horse. Odd how that a small change in perspective altered my whole sense of the world around me. Astride this fine animal, the road was like a ribbon unfurled before me. And then he tells the Fool, in the space of a sundown, you show me the world, in the space of a sundown, you show me the wide world from a horse's back, and the soul of the world within my own walls. And I just, like, I may have talked about it before, or someone may have talked about it before, but, like, I feel like there's a true romance between Fitz and the Fool. Not necessarily, like, sexual or anything like that. I think you can have a romantic relationship with someone and not have it be sexual. and it's just beautiful to read them together, and I love them. And then what else? I've already been rambling and umming for enough, but oh yeah, last thing. Fitz asking the fool what he should call him now, and this this running theme of naming and how a name has power or gives power over to someone. It was the old naming magic. If I knew how you are truly named, I have power over you. If I tell you my name, I grant you that power. Like all direct questions I'd ever asked the fool, I both dreaded and longed for the answer. And the fool's like, are you asking for my mother's name? And he's like, basically, yeah. It's like, beloved. She called me only beloved. Fool, I protested. He laughed, a deep, rich chuckle of pure enjoyment, completely pleased with himself. She did, he insisted. Fool, I'm serious. And you think I'm not? Well, if you cannot call me beloved, then I suppose you should continue to call me fool, for I am ever the fool to your fits. Tom Badgerlock. What? I am Tom Badgerlock now. It is how I am known. He was silent for a time. Then, not by me, he replied decisively. If you insist we must both take different names now, then I shall call you beloved, and whenever I call you that, you may call me fool. He opened his eyes and rolled his head to look at me. He simpered a lovesick smile, then heaved an exaggerated sigh. Good night, beloved. We have been apart too long. I capitulated. Conversation was hopeless when he got into these moods. Good night, fool. It's so good. Goddamn Robin Hobb. I mean, to kind of continue that train of thought of, the fool's name, whether that's truly his name or not. I'm assuming it truly is because he was not joking. But that he, although he was saying it kind of jokingly, I think there's a bit of truth that he is so willing to offer up his name, not only to Fitz knowing his name, but to give Fitz his name to call him by his own name, if that makes sense, so that he would remain the fool, but Fitz would become his beloved, if that makes sense. I just think that's really, really beautiful. It's sorry, this is something that I meant to add before, but it's reminiscent of the Song of Solomon, the vows, biblical vows of my beloved is mine and I am his, verses. So, which oddly enough, I actually have tattooed on my body. So, yay! So, I'm still in the midst of chapter 13 of Fool's Errand, but I was I was struck by this scene where Shade and Fitz is tried his first skilling to Dutiful, and Shade is saying, it hurts me to see that you're still as you have always been since you were taken from your mother, wary and isolated and mistrustful. Despite after all these years, have you given your trust to no one? And Fitz is thinking back on it, and he's like, I trust the fool. Shade says, well, that's good that you trust someone. And then Fitz realizes, he says, he doesn't say, but in the narrative, it says, I realized then that he had hoped that I would insist that I did trust him. It would not have been true, and I would not lie to him. So I think there's this really, like, just her word usage and word choice in that, this idea that Fitz doesn't trust anyone, but he also won't lie to the people that he trusts at the same time. Like, I guess there's a difference between being, I don't know, I don't know, there's this idea, well, not idea, I don't know what I'm trying to say, like, when specifically asked or faced with a question where you either have to be truthful or lie, Fitz will never lie to someone that he doesn't have to. Like, if it's, he won't be, I don't know. And then, but like, I don't know, he doesn't trust anyone, but he doesn't want to lie to anyone at the same time. At least of those that he has positive feelings for. I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. So I'm up through chapter 18 as my note message thing says. I'm really, I don't know how to describe this. Like, I don't know, just there's just something inexplicably wonderful about the way Robin Hobb tells her stories, that even though there's not necessarily a lot of things going on, she just really balances the tension in such a really, it just works for me. Because even though this is slow, you're getting a lot of character moments and just really just compelling world building, and it doesn't feel info dumpy at all. I just love it. Like, that's all I can say. Like, I just love it. I love her writing. Like, I have nothing really new to say. Nothing of profound, like, realizations while reading. Just, oh, Robin Hobb is wonderful, but you guys already know that. I do have a terrible fear that Night Eyes is going to die, which, I mean, he's an old wolf. He's going to die at some point, but I have a feeling he's going to die in this book. So it's going to make me very sad when that happens. Because there's these constant illusions where Night Eyes is telling Fitz, you're treating me as if I'm dead. Like, stop coddling me. Because he says, this is in chapter 14, I think. Yeah, I think 14. But, little brother, do not treat me as if I'm already dead or dying. If you see me that way, then I would rather truly be dead. You steal the now of my life away when you constantly fear that tomorrow will bring my death. Your fears clutch cold at me and snatch all my pleasure in the day's warmth from me. God damn, Night Eyes, you. Oh god, I love you, dude, but I'm gonna be distraught when he dies. What was another thing? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've marked and, like, notated. The Fool giving him a suit and him in the, like, the really fancy, like, outfit, and he's like, oh, I look like my father, Chivalry, and he's like, no, you look like how you finally look like how I see you. I just wish you would, this is how you see yourself, or something like that. I really liked that. What was the other thing? The Fool's seduction of Sidel, and then turning around and being so actually blasted drunk, and, like, kissing Sybil's hand to kind of get them off the trail or whatever, or, like, to get them out of Lady what's her face's Brissiney, her manor. Because he says, I think this is still chapter 18. Yeah, chapter 18. This morning, Lord Golden's facade was fractured, and the full shone forth from the many cracks. And that kind of harkens back to when Fitz is kind of wondering, like, what is it? I marked it here somewhere. But he's basically like, who is the fool? Like, is the fool, or I'm sorry, he's so amazed by the fool as Lord Golden that he has a sudden realization that Lord Golden, and I'm paraphrasing here because I can't find the exact quote, but Lord Golden is as real as the fool. So he starts to question, like, how, like, who is the real quote unquote fool, and does he really know him? So I think that was really interesting. Also, so at the end of chapter 18, when they're on the supposed trail of Dutiful, Fitz is talking to what's her face? Oh dear God, the huntswoman. Oh dear God, what is her name? Oh my God, how did I already forget her name? Laurel. There you go, Laurel. And you know, she's obviously got some sort of witted related things going on, whether she's witted herself or she's related to people that are witted, because she's obviously holding something back. But then she says, or Fitz says, "You sound as if you do not share the currently fashionable hatred of the witted, that perhaps you do not wish to see them all burned and cut up." And she replies, "It's a filthy habit. I think that parents who teach their children to indulge it should be whipped. Those that choose to practice it should not marry nor have children. They already have a beast to share their homes and lives. Why should they cheat a woman or a man by taking a spouse? Those who are witted should have to choose early in their lives which they will bind to, an animal or another human. That's all." And it kind of reminds me of this, not to get political, but to get political, the kind of, at least US ideology or social commentary and discussion and conflict of human rights for other people, other, like, for the quote unquote other, whether that be gay people in the LGBTQ community, you know, people that are not white, you know, historically, like, you know, their interracial marriages were illegal, and it was, you know, white people saying interracial people can't marry because that, what does that look like to me, where because I don't know, it's like this superiority thing, and it's just by attempting to control the quote unquote other, that never works. And it's bad, it is poor, it is just, it never works, and it's a terrible, like, stance to have, to not only other the other, quote unquote, but also to, like, deny their humanity. And I mean, that's really what the peoples in this world, mind you, I have not read The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince, I'm sorry, Angela, but there is a very clear indication that the witted, that those that are witted are othered, and when they are trying to take control and have some control over their lives, it is seen as a there's like a fear tactic that is played against them by those in power, or those that are not witted, and even those, in the case of Laurel, even those that are close to the witted and, either are from that family or from a family of witted ones or live in a community of witted ones, they still continue to other them because they are excluded. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But anyways, I am up to chapter 19. I read like the little, the epigraph of 19, so that's gonna be cool. I need to go to bed, so, but I still really want to read more, so. Oh, the woes, and, what do I do? Do I read more, or do I stay up late and read more, or do I actually get solid sleep and, so that I can actually work relatively well tomorrow? But anywho, I am still in the midst of chapter 19, but this line totally broke me. Night Eyes tells Fitz, "I'll keep up, or you'll leave me behind and do what you must." And then the narrative says, "The fatalism in the thought shamed me. The sacrifice was too close to what a young man had done today for a prince. The inarguable truth was that once more I spent all our strength for a king and a cause." And this particular line is what broke me. "The wolf yielded up the days of his life to me for an allegiance he understood only in terms of his love for me. Black Rolf had been right all those years ago. It was wrong of me to use him so. I made a child's promise to myself that when this was over, I would make it up to him somehow. We would go somewhere he wanted to go and do something he longed to do. Our cabin in the fireside, that would be enough for me. It is yours. I know." Like, I know it's inevitable, but god damn it, Robin Hobb. So I finished chapter 26, and he's gone. But I like the way that she sent him off, where you're thinking, oh, he's gonna go for a hunt, and just you think that he's actually going hunting because it just fits his perception, and then you realize that he's still dreaming with Night Eyes, and what with a wolf's nose, I sent it all and knew all. The world was ours. The turning time, I said to him. Exactly. Time to change, changer. The morning wind ruffled his fur and his ears were perked as he looked down to where he knew they must be. Talking about the deer or whatever. Good hunting. I'm going now, my brother. He spoke with a great determination. Alone. You can't braid a buck down alone. I sighed with resignation. Wait, I'll get up and come with you. Wait for you. Not likely. I've always had to run ahead of you and show you the way. Swift as thought, he slipped away from me, running down the hillside like a cloud shadow when the wind blows. My connection to him frayed away as he went, scattering and floating like dandelion fluff in the wind. Instead of small and secret, I felt our bond go wide and open, as if he had invited all of the winged creatures in the world in to share our joining. All the web of life on the whole hillside suddenly swelled within my heart, linked and meshed and woven through with one another. It was too glorious to contain. I had to go with him. A morning this wondrous must be shared. Wait, I cried, and in shouting the word I woke myself. Nearby, the fool sat up, his hair tousled. I blinked. My mouth was full of salve and wolf hair, my fingers buried deep in his coat. I clutched him to me, and my grip sighed his last stilled breath out of his lungs. But Night Eyes was gone. God damn it. Fuck you, Robin Hobb. So I felt the calling of Hobb. So I started Golden Foal, and I've just started chapter 1, but I read the prologue. Too soon to be reminded of Night Eyes, and yeah, way too soon. I like the seemingly like self-aware like part of Fitz's self-reflection, in that he says, I do not know if it is conceit that always turns my thoughts to my own life, or if my writing is my pathetic effort to explain my life to myself. And then further on towards the end of the prologue, he says, or he writes, what was it? Where is it? Oh, he's talking about the exile of living with Hap and stuff like that. And he says, I had lived apart for all that time, and now I knew it had been my choice. I had chosen to renounce my responsibilities to my family and accepted the ensuing isolation as the cost. At the time, I had insisted to myself that fortune had forced me into that role, just as I was making a choice now. Even though I tried to persuade myself, I was but following the inescapable path fate had set out for me. To recognize you are the source of your own loneliness is not a cure for it, but it is a step towards seeing that it is not inevitable and that such a choice is not irrevocable. And considering the few paragraphs before, when there's the mention of Lady Patience and Lacey talking about how men past, or people past their 30th year likely to remain so. Maybe Fitz gets a romantic connection. I don't know. We'll see. I'm still in the midst of chapter 4, but I just wanted to share this thought before I totally forgot about it and it just left my brain. But we're in the scene in the chapter where Fitz is with the Fool in the Great Hall. Like, he wanted to call it Great Hall, but I don't think that's what it's called. Is it called? Yeah, Great Hall. Okay, yeah, it is called the Great Hall. Anyways, so Fitz is in there, and they get there early because the fool's alleged, faked injury. And this passage says, as I watched As I watched the out-islander delegation, I wondered if change had come to their lands as well. The women had never been chattels of their men. The men might traffic in the women, and youngsters dragged home as the trope of their raiding, but their own women were immune to such bargains. How strange was it then for a father to have the right to offer his daughter as a token to secure peace and trade? Did Alania's father truly offer her? Or was her presence here a ploy of an older, more powerful family, her mother's kin? If that were so, why hide it? Why let it appear that her father was offering her? Why was Pietro the sole representative of their mother house? And that just made me. I mean, I'm sure everything will come to fruition or come to a head. It's obviously at some point, because I trust Robin Hobb. But with that said, I'm reading that passage, and there is questions about, why allow this illusion of power and control in a way, in a sense, when it doesn't reflect the society that they come from. But on the flip side, it is what Fitz and their society sees, and they are a patriarchal society. So they are going to see the man as having some sort of power. Don't listen to this, Kay. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, so it's really just I guess what I'm trying to say, it's a matter of perception. So yeah. I figure it's gonna be easier for me to just message you here directly as I read Golden Fool, so I don't clog up the chat. Plus, I think by the time that the others get to Golden Fool, it'll be more than 30 days, and they won't have access to those messages. Anyways, so I'm on chapter 8. I literally just started it. So, well, not just, but I'm literally 3 pages into the chapter. But one thing that I can't remember the last time I updated you, where I was or whatever, but so sorry, hold on. Oh, I gotta backtrack and gather my thoughts. The skill is a really, at least for Fitz, the skill is a really good, almost physical representation of his depression or just general mental health, because as he's talking about, or he's reflecting on his lessons with Dutiful, and he says, for the prince, skilling was an effortless spilling of his soul. I soon wondered if I had not benefited from my own early struggles to master the skill. I had to force my way out past my own walls. Dutiful could not seem to find any boundaries. He was as prone to share his upset stomach with me as he was to convey his thoughts. When he opened himself, it was as if he opened the floodgate to all the scattered and wafting thought in the world. Standing witness and guard in his mind near overwhelmed me. It frightened and fascinated him, but both emotions kept him from achieving full concentration on what he was attempting. Blah, 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 blah. And I just think that's it's I just got I finished watching Elliot Brooks's wrap-up video from that she had posted from earlier today, and she had read Royal Assassin, and she mentioned that she doesn't really like Fitz because he doesn't care about anybody else, and that and he doesn't like reflect on how his actions or words affect anyone. That's more or less what she said. And that really kind of like as she's been very vocal about like mental health and stuff like that. So it really kind of made me sad and really was disheartened by hearing her say that, because Fitz is such a character, especially in Farseer, but also like even continuing here in Tawny Man. He is a man who has shut himself off from everyone and everything, including himself. He's so simultaneously tries to control everything in his own mind and his reactions at the same time, while simultaneously numbing himself to everything. So he can't feel for other people. He barely tries to feel for himself. And so that just, it makes me sad when people don't like Fitz, which is obviously people's prerogatives because it's a fictional character, and people have different interpretations and desires and whatever. But anyways, again, I can't remember the last time that I updated you on Golden Fool, but I did. There were two parts that I really. It's essentially Fitz kind of having being reunited with Katrikin. So like one-on-one, and she's reflecting on the loss of Night Eyes and how her grief, while she did not have the connection to him, as Fitz does, Fitz is realizing how close they were, and Fitz asks her, he spoke to you, you heard Night Eyes in your mind? And she replies, no, but I felt him in my heart when I was numb to all else. And, oh god, that scene really just broke me. And then, kind of, a little further, so that was probably like 10, 15 pages later, sorry, not Katrikin. Fitz is talking to the Fool, and Fitz is noticing how, the Fool is noticing how Fitz is, standing up straighter and more confident and stuff like that. And the Fool says, "There's a change in you. Your shoulders are squared again. Your eyes are focused. Your eyes focus on me when I talk to you. I don't feel as if I should glance over my shoulder to see if there's a ghost. Someone has lifted a part of your burden." And Fitz replies, "Katrikin. She was closer to Night Eyes than I realized. She mourns him too." And the Fool says, "As do I." And Fitz says, in a different way, "Katrikin mourns Night Eyes as I do, for himself, and for what he was to her. You," ellipses. Which, that line broke my heart for the Fool. And the Fool replies, "I loved him through you. Our link was how he became real to me. So in a sense, I do not mourn Night Eyes as you do. I grieve for your grief." And then a little bit later, Fitz asks, you envy? Fitz replies, you've always been better with words than I am. To which the fool says, well, he says, yes, well, I'm glad that someone could help you, even as I envy Katrikin. That made no sense. You envy her, that she mourns? And he responds, I envy her that she could comfort you. And I just, oh, poor fool. I don't even know why I was like, I don't think I had like a solid thesis on that, but those just two scenes really just kind of broke my heart in different ways. The one other thing is the Jenna's kind of prophecy and looking at his hands. Jenna says, well, do I know that what I say to a person is seldom what that person hears, but I'll tell you again what I saw. It's here. She took my hand. She held the open palm open to her nearsighted eyes. Her bare breast brushed my wrist as her fingers traced a line in my palm. There's a love that twines in and out of your days. Sometimes it leaves, but when it does, it runs alongside you until it returns. That doesn't mean that you must be alone and idle while you wait for it to come back. That love is the fool. Undoubtedly. I would bet my life on it that is the fool. The fool is his love. Because he is beloved. So, yeah. Well, I mean, she's obviously she's a child. But at the same time, if we're going to apply the same like our world views and society standards to theirs, the Eliana's world and society, like, even though she is a child, she's still a woman and she still has so much power. So I am not outright mistrustful of not only her, but her uncle and her father, but I am dubious at best of their intentions. But yeah, so my dog has a toy. Of course, I start talking and he wants to play with the toy. But yeah, so I am, I made the mistake of reading the back of the book, and of course I already know, like, they're gonna go on some sort of quest to find a dragon because she wants them to or something. So I'm just I'm kind of getting the benefit of looking for not necessary clues, but like being able to read between the lines without having to reread it again. So I guess that's the benefit of reading the back of the UK paperbacks, I suppose. But I really need to train myself not to do that. But I mean, honestly, like, for me, I'm not a plot-driven reader. In like a the plot sense, like action sense of the word. So like, honestly, like, I just don't want to know the end of a book. Like, I can know the action, like what goes on in the book, but not the end of the book. Or the fate of a character or something like that. But yeah, so unrelated, well, somewhat related. So I was thinking about it last night. Max, stop it. I was thinking about it last night, as I was, Max, if you hear my air purifier, I apologize. But I am in the midst of chapter 13, and Plot-wise, it's definitely picking up, especially with the addition of the visit from the Beantown traders. And there are a couple of scenes in particular, well, one scene in particular that I'm still trying to formulate thoughts on, or at least like making them coherent and stuff like that. Specifically, it is the moment or the scene where Jack is reunited, or Jack is in the Fool's rooms, and she meets Fitz, thinking he is Lord Golden, and there's this kind of reveal of Lord Golden as Amber and Amber as Lord Golden. And this kind of, not even kind of, there is this assumption based on the Fool as Amber's actions and words with her profession of love for Fitz in the guise of, making Paragon into his image, that it causes this really simultaneously uncomfortable but really just beautiful confession of love that Fitz hears. He hears the Fool admitted and said that he loved him before, and Fitz thought that he was joking. And finally Fitz hears this profession of love from the Fool, and specifically, the Fool says, well, Fitz is kind of overhearing and eavesdropping on their conversation. What was it? Jack says, "Why the masquerade when it must be so difficult for both of you?" And the Fool replies, "It is difficult for me. It is not so difficult for him because he knows little of it. There, fool that I am, and have been, truly, to have ever let that secret have breath to anyone, let alone shape. Such a monstrous vanity on my part. Monstrous, immense, you carved a ship's figurehead in his likeness, and hoped no one would ever guess what he meant to you. Ah, my friend, you manage everyone's lives and secrets so well. Then, when it comes to your own, well, and he doesn't even know that you love him? I think he chooses not to. Perhaps he suspects. Well, after chatting with you, I am certain that he suspects now, but he leaves it alone. He is like that. Then he's a damned fool, a handsome damned fool, though, despite the broken nose. I'll wager he was even prettier before that happened. Who spoiled his face? My dear Jack, you've seen him. No one could spoil his face. Not for me." And then later, it's Fitz is he's I don't want to say that he's humiliated by these rumors, which I want to say I think he is in a way. Just the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the assumptions or presumptions, and just the idea of him being like involved with a man. I mean, even like who was it? Later on, someone said something about like the Fool mounting him or whatever, or Lord Golden mounting him, and oh, Starling. It was Starling that said that, and but Fitz is more. He's more hurt by the, as he puts it, the betrayal of trust from the Fool. That he has these sides to himself and these identities that Fitz thought that he had this true friendship with him, but then he realizes that he has these other identities that he's not sure who he can trust. But at the same time, like, as I'm talking through this, Fitz is doing the same thing to really almost everybody else, other than, you know, obviously the Fool and all that stuff, because he is Fitz, he is Tom Badgerlock, and he is the servant. Like, he's taking on all these identities, with people, depending upon people who he cares about, however overtly or covertly. But anyways, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm really, yeah. So I'm literally halfway through the Golden Fool. So I am just tearing through this like a I don't know, I was gonna say an inappropriate thing, but whatever. But yeah, I'm really, really, really intrigued by Eliana. With this reference to a lady, capital L, I wonder if they're referencing the Pale Lady that is that was kind of mentioned back in the Farseer trilogy. And yeah, and I wonder if she has any play into that. If maybe she is another type of catalyst and the Pale Lady is another White Prophet, and they're kind of at odds with one another. Fitz and the Fool, and then the Pale Lady and maybe Eliana or whomever, maybe another catalyst. So these, like, if that's the case, it'd be really interesting to kind of see these two catalyst forces at play with one another. So yeah. Anywho, that's a very long message. I'm sorry. Yeah, I honestly thought like the Rainwild traitor under the veil was going to be what's his name? Rain? Was that his name, I think? Malta's husband. For whatever reason. So I was surprised but not surprised that it was Selden. And given that it was, 7 years between the end of Ship of Destiny and the start of Tawny Man, Selden was like, what, 8 or something during Live Ship? But they mention that, or Fitz observes that he looks younger than Dutiful and Elania. So I wonder if, I mean, I wonder / can't remember if becoming a part of, like, the Rain Wilders, like, in physicality, if that extends his life as well, or if that's really just a part of his connection with Tatalia. Is that how you say it? Tatalia, I think? I don't know. Whatever. words are when you read words on the page, it's weird trying to pronounce them out loud sometimes. But yes, so I'm also intrigued by this kind of aspect between Selden / Titalia and Fitz, and this kind of well, it's not even kind of it's pretty much a desperation that they're at this point. That Bingtown and the Rainwilders and Titalia is at with the dragons and protecting the dragons and breeding them, or like, you know, increasing the number of dragons. And then on the other side is the out islanders, who, like, Fitz overhears them, they're talking about dragon breeder, calling them dragon breeders, and they can't allow them to succeed or whatever, to create more dragons. So there's definitely a lot of intrigue going on here. There's always intrigue, of course, but it's definitely building more than just like the individual character, like, complexities, if that makes sense. Yeah, anyways, there was another part that I forgot to talk about. At least I think there was. Yeah, I can't find it. Oh well. Anywho. Oh, also, this is not what I was going to mention, but it popped into my head. On one hand, I like the aspect that they kind of mentioned Brashen and Althea, but at the same time, I'm like, dadgummit, of course Althea's pregnant. Frickin'... yeah. Like, and it sounds like she didn't even want to get pregnant. Like, but, yeah. Dadgummit. Like, not that that's, being a mom is a bad thing, but, I just never envisioned Althea as a mothering figure. I am almost finished with chapter 16 of Golden Fool, and sort of reunion with Burrick, and yeah, it just brought everything up again. Just their relationship, Fitz and Burrick's relationship, the grief of everything, and yeah. So something that I do in really pretty much every single book that I read, and especially with Robin Hobb's books, is I kind of use color tabs to mark, like, passages and stuff like that, and I'll write, like, what each tab means, what each color means. So for this book, and actually throughout the series, I've always had orange as signifying something about the wit or connection or identity. But for Golden Fool specifically, I also have blue where it means loneliness or mentality or grief, and then green is secrecy, power, or control. And the scene where Burrick comes to the keep to retrieve his son, I literally had tabs for each thing, because I think it's just the power of Hobb's storytelling, that she's able to interweave and intertwine all of these themes so seamlessly and subtly through the story and through the characters. If you hear my cat meowing or whatever, she's purring. She's very, very much purring. But anyways, and when Burke tells Shade and Katrikin after Katrikin says, Swift told us, Burke, I do not see it as a shameful thing, being the wit. He told me he had come to me as I have forbidden men to persecute those with the wit. He has asked to take service with me. In truth, I would be glad to have such a stout-hearted lad to page for me, but I have told him it must be his father's consent. He shook his head as he refused her. I do not give it, my lady. Swift is far too young to live among strangers, to be raised so quickly and so far above his natural station could spoil him. He needs to remain at my side for some years yet, until he learns to control his boyish impulses. And that just... it broke my heart, because that is Fitz, in both Swift's situation as well as Burrick's, in that Burrick was the one to raise Fitz. He was far too young to live among strangers. He was younger even than Swift when he came to the keep. And then also Fitz is Burrick in this scenario, because he is trying to, however unsuccessfully, raise Hap. And yeah, and then further on, like, the grief of Fitz's death, or at least as Burrick sees it, just reopens. And yeah. And Fitz says, tells himself, in a numbed stillness, I stood and peered at the man who felt responsible for my death. He must continue to carry that guilt. I could not change it. And then Shade and Katrikin give him the opportunity to reunite with Burrick and to tell him that he's alive, and Fitz refuses. But then before that, before Burrick leaves, Burrick says, no one dies from being forbidden the wit. There's a loneliness in giving it up, and well do I know that. But no one dies from avoiding the wit. Using the wit is how one dies from it. Yeah. One of the many things that I found interesting about this chapter is that immediately after that scene, obviously I hadn't gotten into it to the point at that point when I sent you that last message, but immediately after that scene, Fitz goes down to Bugkeep Town, where he gets in the fight with Svanya's father, and then he has this like kind of come to Jesus type moment with Hap, and they're discussing or kind of arguing about love, like, you don't even know what love is. And Fitz says, love doesn't require betting to make it true. It doesn't even demand day-to-day contact. I know this because I have known love, many kinds of loves, and among them I've known what I felt for you. And then further, he like he proclaims his love for Hap, but it is Hap who is the one that is the first to say the words "I love you," to which Fitz responds and says that he loves him too. And I think it's just really like, I don't know, it's like a not quite a full circle moment, but it's you know, kind of harkening back to the conversation that Fitz and the Fool had regarding their like relationship and their roles and stuff like that. And he's and I think it's at that point that he kind of like, or at least around there, that he realizes that he needs to, like, I mean, even before that, he wanted to repair his relationship with the Fool, but I think he probably realized that he always, like, as the Fool said, he always knew what that meant, but speaking it out loud to Hap really kind of solidified it. And I'm up to chapter, what chapter am I on? I'm up to chapter 18 now. So, you know, up to this point, like, it's like this will they, won't they type situation going on where the Fool is playing his role as Lord Golden, and Fitz wants to bridge that gap to go back to how they quote unquote were before. But neither of them know how to bridge that gap, if that makes sense. I just finished chapter 23 of The Golden Fool, and my suspicions from our conversation on Thursday night / Friday morning, afternoon, were correct. I'm very, like, I was not expecting to actually be correct. So yeah, that there is this conflict, or as the Fool puts it, convergence, with him and Fitz and the Pale Lady and Hinya and Svanya and all them. That's just a beautiful scene, and up until that point, the Fool has kept himself so he's assumed that role of Lord Golden, making Fitz the servant Tom Badgerlock, and even with Fitz's death and them bring the coterie bringing him back together, he's still very distant from Fitz, and Fitz is, you know, at this, he has this hunger and this need for the Fool and to reconnect with him. And it's only truly in this scene, in this moment, when the Fool tells Fitz everything about the prophecy and what was it? Yeah, about his death. It is my turn to die. Oh God, I'm gonna, even though I know it's coming, I'm gonna bawl like a goddamn baby. But I think it's just so interesting, this entire, like, oh, this is just so, I don't even know how to describe it. You see, we're trapped. I've trapped you, my friend, my beloved. I tried to fit my mind around what he was telling me. If we lose, I die, I said. He nodded. If you die, we lose. It's all the same. What happens if I live? Then we win. Not much chance of that now. Not much chance in getting worse all the time, I'd say. Most likely we lose. You die and the world spirals into darkness and ugliness and despair. Stop being so cheerful. This time I drank out of the bottle, then I passed it to him. But what if I do live? What if we win? What then? He parted the bottle's mouth from his. What then? Ah. He smiled beatifically. Then the world goes on, my friend. Children run down muddy streets. Dogs bark at passing carts. Friends sit and drink brandy together. Doesn't sound much different from what we have, I observed sourly. To go through all this and make no difference at all? Yes, he agreed beatifically. That's a really weird word to pronounce out loud. His eyes filled with tears. Not much different from the wondrous and amazing world that we have now. Boys falling in love with girls that aren't right for them, wolves hunting on the snowy plains, and time, endless time unwinding for all of us. And the dragons, of course, dragons sliding across the sky like beautiful jeweled ships. And then a little bit later, it's all connected. When you save any part of the world, you save the whole world. In fact, that's the only way it can be done. In that moment, Fitz gets the fool back with his riddles, and I feel like I've gotten the fool back as well. And it's just, yeah. God damn, Robin Hobb, you're so good. Um, but before that, separately, that uh, Dutiful now knows who Fitz is, albeit he doesn't know he's kind of his father, like physically, like bodily his father, but not spiritually his father. Um, so that's interesting. Yeah. So I holy crap, it's 45 minutes to midnight for me, and I am on a high right now, and I'm going to read until I'm actually tired, and then hopefully maybe I can finish this tomorrow, but there are no guarantees. So hopefully I will have more thoughts that I will be sending your way as I read. So I just finished The Golden Fool, and like plot wise, oddly enough, I am not super compelled to read the last book in the trilogy, but oh, the way that this ended was so good. You said once that I might call you beloved if I no longer wish to call you fool. Beloved, I have missed your company. And then he replies, don't you think that might cause some talk about the keep? And I'm so glad that they're reunited. But they're not. They've both changed, and they both have grown, and well, specifically Fitz has matured and come to appreciate the fool for who he is or who they are, in all their myriad and facets. Yeah, such a good book. Damn you, Robin Hobb. And then the epilogue. Oh god, I kind of marked the entire epilogue. It's just gorgeous. The hand that once wielded both sword and axe now aches after an evening of the quill. When I wipe the tip of one clean, I often wonder how many buckets of ink I've used in a lifetime. How many words have I set down on paper or vellum, thinking to trap the truth thereby? And of those words, how many have I myself consigned to the flames as worthless and wrong. I do as I have done so many times. I write, I sand the wet ink, I consider my own words, then I burn them. Perhaps when I do so, the truth goes up the chimney as smoke. Is it destroyed or set free in the world? I do not know. Damn you, Robin Hood, you're so good. So, I'm up through chapter 3 of Fool's Fate, as the previous message describes. Yeah, I don't have too many like, oh my god, yeah, what the crap thoughts. I'm just really relishing in Robin Hobb's writing, as always, when I come back into her worlds and in her writing, and it's just, oh god, I just love her writing. You know, there are just some quotes that are just genuinely, like, out of context, wonderful. Recounting a dream, that's what it is like. Trying to make a story out of a series of events that defy logic. And I think that is just, that's incredibly accurate. And then dread can weary a man more than honest labor, and mind built with each passing day. Oh, Fitz. There was... What was it? There was one thing... one thing that I am intrigued about is Webb. When Webb called Fitz by his name, I was like, oh, he knows his name. And even though almost immediately, right after, you find out, or at least Fitz puts two and two together, like, why he knows his name and knows him. I still think there's probably going to be some sort of ramifications. I don't want to say it, but I hope, but, like, I don't think it would just be casually put in there, just to be put in there. So I think that's interesting. What was the other thing? I liked the conversation that Fitz and the Fool has regarding identity, because I mean that's been one of the constant themes that I have found throughout this entire series so far, is this just idea of this theme of identity and just connection and who you are. And Fitz asks the Fool, how do you do it? You shift who you are from year to year and place to place. Don't you ever feel regret that no one truly knows you as the person you were born? And the Fool replies, I am not the person I was born, neither are you. I know no one who is. Truly, Fitz. All we ever know are facets of one another. Perhaps we feel as if we know one another well when we know several facets of that person. Father, son, brother, friend, lover, husband. A man can be all of those things, yet no one person knows him in all those roles. I watch you being Hap's father, and yet I do not know you as I knew my father, any more than I knew my father as his brother did. So, when I show myself as in a different light, I do not make a pretense. Rather, I bear a different aspect to the world than they have ever seen before. Truly, there is a place in my heart where I am forever the Fool and your playfellow. And within me there is a genuine Lord Golden, fond of good drink and well-prepared food and elegant clothing and witty speech. And so, when I show myself as him, I am deceiving no one, but only sharing a different part of myself. Damn! Hot damn! Oh, God, I love the Fool. I love him so much. And then when the Fool tells Fitz, "Ah, beloved, of all the things I must bid farewell to, you are the one most difficult to lose." Oh, God. And then... the conversation with Shade. About the dragons. Well, right before that, just the line and just the experience of Fitz and the Fool connecting. And one of the lines that I just underlined, and just even out of context, it was gorgeous. It was not a sharing, it was a becoming. And they were just, yeah, it wasn't even like skill sharing, it was becoming. Oh God, beautiful. Anyways, one passage that I really, really liked. I mean, obviously I liked all this stuff. Anyways, Shade talking about Icefire and the dragons. And Shade just, wanting the dragon to die, Icefire to die. And the Fool saying, "But when the time comes, that decision may not be yours. It may be mine, or Fitz's. And not only the world, but humanity itself does need dragons. And why is that?" Shade demanded disdainfully. And this is the Fool's reply. "To keep the balance. Humanity fears no rivals. You have forgotten what it was to share the world with creatures as arrogantly superior as yourselves. You think to arrange the world to your liking, so you map the land and draw lines across it, claiming ownership simply because you can draw a picture of it. The plants that grow and the beasts that rove, you mark as your own, claiming not only what lives today, but what might grow tomorrow, to do with as you please. Then, in your conceit and aggression, you wage wars and slay one another over the lines you have imagined on the world's face. And I suppose dragons are better than we are because they don't do such things, because they simply take whatever they see. Free spirits, nature's creatures, possessing all the moral loftiness that comes from not being able to think." The Fool shook his head, smiling. "No, dragons are no better than humans. They are little different at all from men. They will hold up a mirror to humanity's selfishness. They will remind you that all your talk of owning this and claiming that is no more than the snarling of a chained dog or a sparrow's challenge song. The reality of those claims lasts but for the instant of its sounding. Name it as you will, claim it as you will, the world does not belong to men. Men belong to the world. You will not own the earth that eventually your body will become, nor will it recall the name it once answered to." Whoa! Oh, holy shit. I loved the absolute wonder of that. And then Shade just outright admitting to Fitz that he doesn't care. When, after that, Fitz asks Shade, "How can the two of you quarrel over my loyalty, as if I had no thought of my own to give to any decision I might make? I would not think a horse or a dog as mindless a game piece as you both seem to think I am." And Shade responds, "Not a horse or a dog, Fitz. No. I'd never think of you that way. No. You're a sword. So you were made to be, by me, a weapon to be wielded, and he thinks you fit in his hand the best." goddamn shade. Fucking asshole. And poor Fitz, again, just being used and realizing that he's just being used. So yeah. So I'm up through chapter 6 of Fool's Fate, and I like chapters 4 and 5 were, pretty slow paced for me. Like, I didn't really have a lot of thoughts or, feedback or whatever about them. But chapter 6, just I'm just excited and nervous to see how Nettle grows as a character, not only in her powers, but with an arc. Or I hope she has a really satisfying arc. Yeah, and just her ability with the dreams, and how in I think it was like the like epigraph, or in one of the epigraphs it mentioned that dream skilling or something like that was often the manifestations of the skill magic when a skill user was by themselves and didn't have like a coterie or training or anything like that. And just that she has this absolute power and control over dreams, and she uses it to help Fick, is just really wonderful. And when Fitz tells her he's talking about, like, I know what the magic, I know that magic can take a toll, and she says, magic, this dream shaping is not magic, it just is magic, this dream shaping is not magic, it is just a thing I can do. And I don't know, I just really like that line. And I'm, as much as I love Katrikin, I'm so interested to see where Nettle goes as a character, because I feel like she is even more strong-willed and self-assured than Katrikin. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where she goes. So yeah, I am just absolutely bawling just at these scenes with Burrick and Fitz being reunited, and Heart of the Pack was here and he had never let us come to harm. And then when Fitz realizes that Fick is okay, and then when Burrick resets Fitz's shoulder, Burrick says, "You're a man grown all these many years, but when I see you hurt, I swear you are 8 years old." And I'm thinking, I promised his father I'd look after his son. I promised. And Fitz replies, "You did. You have." And I knew that I missed Burrick. And that's just the power of Hobbs writing, that you feel just as emotionally relieved and impacted by his return. I mean, it's words on a page, They're characters, they're fiction, but it feels so real. And so, it's just, she makes you feel everything, and it's just, yeah. Yeah. Chapter 23. If you hear my husband yelling, he's watching football. But anyways, chapter 23 of Fool's Fate might be the greatest piece of literature I've ever read in my entire life. Holy shit. Like, while reading it and then just finishing that chapter, I had to catch my breath. It was absolutely the tension, the emotions, the anticipation and fear and excitement, and terror, and just you feel all of the things, and it's genuinely one of the most beautiful and amazing things I've ever read in my entire life. Holy shit. Yeah, so oh god. How do I formalize my thoughts here other than saying, oh my god, this is amazing? But yeah, so like that Fitz he has this recognition and connection with Icefire, and he goes to the depths of himself in order to try and reignite the life within Icefire. Is really, I feel like everything is culminating to this point. Like everything in the series so far has culminated to this point. So I'm really interested and excited to see where the Rainwild Chronicles and the Fitz and the Fool trilogy like carry on from this, and obviously the rest of the books I obviously haven't finished, but it's like, oh god, this is so good. It's incredible. And what was it? There was a line that I had underlined. Where is it at? It's there you are. I thought you were dead. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, I can't find the exact line. I should have marked it when I had actually read it, but I was just so enthralled. But yeah, so essentially it was like, you know, this felt like a moment that the Fool had always talked about, where it was an integral, or what's the word? It's gonna bother me if I can't find a freaking quote. Like, but that essentially, like, this was one of those quote unquote changing choices, and it's just, you can feel that. Rob, like, she could have just said, oh, this is one of those changing choices, but you know, any lesser of an author, I think, would have, or a lesser of a writer would have said something like that. But Robin Hobb goes into the depth of that choice in all its aspects and variety, and yeah, it's just, yeah. So, I found the quote. So, did as the fool had so long insisted, the fate of the whole world hinge on the actions of everyday man. Wait, no, that's not the quote. Dadgummit. Well, whatever, I can't find the quote. Anyways, yeah, so, oh god, bless it. But yeah, so, like, there's that aspect of the entire chapter, and then that, Nettle comes into play and tries to help fix the dream at Fitz's insistence, and she gets pulled completely in by the dragon, and Thick comes in like what is it, that cavalry or whatever, like the cavalry, and he just comes in and he just fixes everything. And one of the lines that I can actually find now, that I thought was so beautiful was, he sang the song that was Nettle, and she coalesced around the notes. He did not seek her so much as summon her to fill the shape that he had made for her. And then, as if he were restoring a glass figurine to his shelf, so he carefully restored her to his dream of her. Had ever a woman been regarded as so precious? For a moment I glimpsed the inside of the traveling wagon, and then the kitten on the bed told the limp woman sprawled beside him, "It's all right. Rest for now. You know the way home from here. Rest for a time and then go home. You are safe now. You know I love you." Oh. There's that, like, beautiful moment, and then, everything kind of comes back. It's like, and Fitz is able to speak skill to everyone else. He fixes Fitz as well, and I think Thick is the one that fixed Fitz's skill. Like, in a way, I think he's the one that, like, put everything back together. Um, because Thick says, "Nettle is fine. I mended her. Now I'll mend him." He's talking about Fitz, back together too. And then he slammed me back into my body with no more ceremony than that. Oh, this entire chapter was so great. Oh my god. Oh, so good. Oh, God bless it, Robin Hobb. Wonderful, 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 wonderful person. So, no, hugs are not needed, because I got past the, the sad parts of the fool saying bye to Fitz and stuff. Don't listen to this, Angela. This is me finishing Fool's Fates. I can't with good conscience give this 5 stars. Solely because of the last 10 to 15 pages. I don't know why it angered me so much, and it disgusted me. Just, everything was perfection up until those last 10 to 15 pages. And it's not because I don't like Molly. I actually really like Molly. It's just how Fitz sees her as his, and Molly says, "Oh, no one asked my opinion." And then they go on as if Burke never happened and wasn't important. And I like, Team Burke forever? Like, that's I don't know. It was so perfect up until the end. I'm so mad. Derry, I need you to talk me off of this cliff. Yes. So other than crap, what chapter was it? Chapter 23, I think it was. Chapter 22, whatever that chapter was. I was like, oh my god, this is like the best chapter in literature. Other than that chapter, and honestly, the chapter after it, Mind of the Dragon, I think it was the title. That was a really good chapter. Holy crap! When Nettle goes into the Mind of the Dragon of Titalia. Anyways, that's not what you're asking about. So yes, so when Fitz and the Fool, like, it's the ultimate connection, and Fitz finally sees, like, there's no barrier between Fitz and the Fool, and Fitz sees the Fool as who he truly is, as a being. He recognizes that he is not human, and similarly, simultaneously with that kind of no barriers in place, the Fool realizes the fallibility of humanity. Not fallibility, but like the vulnerabilities of humanity, and what Fitz has been dealing with all the pain that he's dealt with, and it's just, I think it was a really, really good scene. And I mean, as much as I love Fitz up until the last 10 to 15 pages of this book, I guess I love depressed Fitz, so I don't know what that says about me, that I'm a terrible person, but more than anything, the Fool is the character that I'm excited to read about and I want to see more of, because he's just so, the Fool is just so the Fool. They're just so amazing, and I love the Fool and everything about them. Good, bad, and ugly, which there's not much bad or ugly about the Fool, in my opinion. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just the ending, like the last chapter and then the epilogue. Well, the last two chapters in the epilogue, it just, I could tell she was trying to wrap things up in a bow. Like in Assassin's Quest, I could feel that a little bit as well, but I think there was enough that, like, she let it breathe, like the ending breathe, and like it didn't feel rushed, whereas Fool's Fate felt rushed, even though technically, there was like 100 pages, 200 pages or whatever left after the kind of climax scene and everything's all done. It still felt rushed to me. I think if she had given, even like an entire book just to Fitz and Molly and their reuniting and just reconnecting, I think it would have, like, how they ended up would have set better with me. But I don't know. Robin Hobb is still a god among mortals, and I'm very much excited to finish the Realm of the Elderlings whenever that happens. But I might have to take a break. Not because of Fool's Fate, but just in general. Like, I read Robin Hobb when Robin Hobb calls to me. So, it might be a little bit more of a wait until I hear her Siren song, or I might try some of her Megan Lindholm stuff. I might do that. Well, I mean, yeah, no, that it fits perfectly like a puzzle piece. I was gonna say that, Paragon is the one who took some of his, those really like terrible memories from Kemet to help save him in a way. And he is, he's not a stone dragon, but he is wizard wood. He is part dragon. So he is partially forged in a way. Which kind of, like, in hindsight, it totally makes sense with Kennett's character that he's, for the majority of the Lifeship Traders trilogy, he's relatively passive. Like, everybody else around him is pushing forward the action and making him look, however a certain way, or, getting ships, and, Etta saving him in the, what do you call it, the like tavern thing or whatever, brothel. But like, he's relatively passive, and he doesn't really take any action. And then once he sets fire to Paragon, and I feel like he kind of, I want to say he didn't go fully forged, but he definitely kind of went over the edge into being a forged one, because he subsequently raped Althea. And you see his true colors once he's set fire to Paragon. And, the forged ones are just these these beings that have no conscience and no morality, and that's what Kenneth became after he set fire to Paragon. So yeah, I think more than anything, and I don't even think Fitz really reflected on this at all, is all the forged ones that he had killed over the years, the possibility of them having come back to themselves instead of him killing them, with the death of the stone dragon. So yeah,